Commander Vexstar stood on the bridge of his massive warship and looked out at the stars. His 12-foot-tall body cast a dark shadow across the metal floor. Sharp claws clicked against the command console as he moved his powerful hands. Then, thick armor plates on his back reflected the dim lights of the bridge. Green acid dripped slowly from his mouth as he smiled, showing rows of deadly teeth. For 3,000 years, the Zephrian Empire had ruled the galaxy. They were the strongest, the fastest, and the deadliest creatures anyone had ever seen. Every other species feared them. When Zephrians arrived at a planet, the fight was over before it began. Their enemies would look up at these giant monsters and simply give up. Vexstar had conquered 47 worlds himself. He remembered each one clearly. The blue-skinned Altarians had lasted only 6 hours, while metal-eating Cronits had tried to hide in their deep caves, but Zephrian acid had melted through their strongest barriers in minutes. The proud warrior race of Theros had put up a good fight for almost 3 days before their last city fell, but this new target looked different. Very different. Sir, we are approaching the target system, said his second-in-command. Lieutenant Crix. The smaller Zephrian's voice carried the usual tone of respect mixed with fear that all lower ranks used when speaking to Vexstar. Show me the planet, Vexstar ordered. The main screen lit up with an image of a blue and green world spinning slowly in space. White clouds moved across its surface like soft cotton. 3 large land masses were surrounded by vast oceans. 2 small moons circled the planet in perfect harmony. It looks peaceful, Crix said quietly. Vexstar made a sound that might have been laughter if it came from any other creature. When Zephrians laughed, it sounded like rocks being crushed. They always look peaceful from space. Tell me about the creatures that live there. Crix touched several buttons on his control panel. New images appeared on the screen. These showed small, pink-skinned beings walking on 2 legs. They had no claws, no armor, no sharp teeth, and no natural weapons at all. They looked soft and weak. They call themselves humans, Crix reported. Average height is about 6 feet. They have no protective shell or thick skin. Their teeth are small and mostly flat. They cannot spit acid or poison. They have no natural weapons except their hands, which are small and look very fragile. Studied the images more closely. The humans wore artificial coverings over their bodies, probably to protect their weak skin. Some held simple tools made of metal and wood. They moved slowly compared to Zephrians, and seemed to spend a lot of time in groups, talking to each other. What about their military? Vexstar asked. Very basic, Crix answered. They have some flying machines and vehicles that move on the ground. Their weapons shoot small metal pieces at high speed, but nothing that could hurt our armor. Their largest flying machines are about 1/10 the size of our smallest fighter craft. Vexstar nodded. It was exactly what he expected. These humans looked like every other weak species the Empire had conquered. Small, soft, and helpless. How many of them are there? He asked. About 8 billion on the entire planet. 8 billion, Vexstar repeated. That was actually quite a lot. Most species had much smaller populations. But numbers meant nothing when the individuals were so weak. And they have only one world? Yes, sir. They have never traveled to other stars. They have some very small outposts on their 2 moons, but nothing significant. This appears to be their only real home. Vexstar looked at the peaceful blue planet again. 8 billion creatures, all living on one small world with nowhere to run. It would be like gathering fish in a net. Once his fleet surrounded their planet, the humans would have no choice but to surrender. Sir Crix said carefully, the High Command has assigned only Battle Group 7 to this conquest. That is just 12 ships and 3,000 soldiers. Is that enough for 8 billion enemies? Vexstar's acid dripped faster as his amusement grew. 3,000 Zephrian warriors against 8 billion humans. Crix, one of our soldiers, is worth 1,000 of these soft creatures. Could conquer their world with half that number. He turned away from the screen and walked to his command chair. The massive seat was built to support his enormous frame and was decorated with the skulls of enemies he had personally killed. As he sat down, the chair made a deep groaning sound under his weight. Besides, Vexstar continued, look at their history. More images appeared on the screen. These showed humans fighting each other with primitive weapons. They formed into small groups and attacked other small groups over tiny pieces of land or simple disagreements. They had no unity, no shared purpose beyond their immediate tribes. They fight each other constantly, Vexstar observed. Even now, their world has hundreds of separate groups that call themselves countries. Each country has its own military, its own leaders, its own goals. They cannot work together for anything important. When we arrive, some of them will probably try to make deals with us to help defeat their neighbors. Crix looked at the images and nodded. It does seem like they have trouble cooperating, sir. Trouble. Vexstar's voice became louder. They have no concept of true cooperation. Look at any species we have conquered in the past 50 years. The Vortons were a hive mind that shared all thoughts. The Selenites were genetically programmed to follow their queen without question. Even the rebellious Theros put aside their clan differences when we invaded their world. He pointed one razor-sharp claw at the screen. But these humans? They will waste time arguing with each other while we destroy their cities. Half of them will surrender immediately. The other half will fight each other instead of fighting us. Bridge crew listened carefully to their commander's words. Most of them were young officers who had never seen a real conquest. They had grown up hearing stories of the great battles their fathers and grandfathers had fought. But those days seemed long past. Every recent conquest had been quick and easy. Prepare the standard invasion protocol, Vexstar ordered. Begin with orbital bombardment of their major cities. Target their military bases first, then their centers of government. Leave their communication systems partially intact so they can coordinate their surrender. Yes, sir, several officers responded at once. And Crix Vexstar added, prepare the usual surrender terms. Complete submission to the Empire. 20% of their population to be taken as slaves. All military equipment to be destroyed. Their leaders will be executed as an example to other worlds. Crix began typing the terms into his computer. These were the same terms offered to every conquered world. Most species accepted them quickly once they realized the alternative was complete extinction. As his ship moved closer to the human world, Vexstar felt the familiar excitement of an approaching victory. Soon this blue planet would be just another star on the Empire's charts. The humans would learn what every other species had learned. Zephrians were the apex predators of the galaxy, and resistance was completely pointless. On the surface of Earth, deep inside a military command center in the Rocky Mountains, Colonel Jake Martinez stared at the radar screens, showing unknown objects approaching from space. The objects were huge, much larger than anything humans had ever built. They moved in perfect formation and were clearly not natural. It's phenomena. Jake's hands were steady as he reached for the red phone. That would alert every military base on Earth. He had spent his entire career preparing for this moment, though he had never really believed it would come. This is Colonel Martinez, he said into the phone. We have contact. The first Zephrian energy blasts hit New York City at exactly 6:47 in the morning. Commander Vexstar watched from his ship as bright green beams struck the tallest buildings in the human city. He expected to see the structures collapse immediately, just like they always did on other worlds. Instead, something strange happened. The buildings shook, and parts of them broke away, but they did not fall down completely. Vexstar leaned forward in his command chair, confused. His weapons were designed to destroy the strongest materials known in the galaxy. These human buildings should have turned to dust. Sir, Lieutenant Crix said nervously, the buildings are still standing. I can see that, Vexstar growled. Increase power to the main guns. More green energy beams shot down from the Zephrian ships. This time, several human buildings did collapse, sending clouds of dust and debris into the air. But even as the structures fell, Vexstar noticed something that made his skin crawl with unease. The humans were not running away in panic like every other species did. Instead, they were moving in organized groups towards specific locations. What are they doing? Vexstar asked. Crix studied his scanner readings. Sir, it appears they are gathering at predetermined meeting points. They seem to have planned for this type of attack. planned for it. That was impossible. No species had ever been ready for a Zephrian invasion. The shock and terror of seeing giant alien warships always made other creatures freeze with fear or run around wildly without thinking. "Deploy the ground forces," Vexstar ordered. "Send down the first assault wave." 30 Zephrian dropships left the main fleet and headed toward the human city. Each ship carried 50 fully armed warriors. Against any other species, 1,500 Zephrian soldiers would be enough to conquer an entire planet. These humans had no real weapons and no natural defenses. The battle should be over in minutes. Lieutenant Sophie Grant crouched behind a pile of broken concrete and watched the alien ships land in Central Park. She was 26 years old and had been in the Army for only 3 years. Nothing in her training had prepared her for this moment, but she felt surprisingly calm. "Johnson, do you see that?" she whispered into her radio. "Yeah, I see them," came the reply from Sergeant Pete Johnson, who was positioned 2 blocks away. "They're big, really big." Sophie watched through her binoculars as the first Zephrian warriors stepped out of their ships. They were even more frightening in person than in the blurry satellite photos the military had shown them during the emergency briefing 1 hour ago. Each alien stood 12 feet tall and moved with the confidence of a creature that had never lost a fight. But Sophie noticed something else. The aliens moved in straight lines across open ground. They did not try to hide or take cover. They acted like nothing could hurt them. "All units, this is command," a voice said over the radio. "Remember your training. These things have thick armor on their backs and sides, but intelligence suggests their joints and undersides might be vulnerable. Do not engage in direct combat. Use hit-and-run tactics only." Sophie had never heard of hit-and-run tactics until this morning. But the idea was simple. Shoot at the enemy, then immediately move to a new location before they could shoot back. It was the opposite of how soldiers usually fought, but it made sense when facing enemies that were bigger and stronger. The first shots came from a building 6 blocks away. Sophie heard the rapid fire of automatic weapons, followed by a sound she had never heard before. It was like a cross between a roar and a scream, but much louder than any animal could make. "First blood to us," Johnson's voice crackled over the radio. "One of them is down." Sophie felt a rush of excitement. The aliens could be killed. That was the most important piece of information anyone had learned so far. "Commander." Vexstar stared at his tactical display in disbelief. One of his warriors was dead. Not injured, not knocked unconscious, but actually dead. The signal from Warrior Thek's armor had gone completely silent. "How?" he asked Crix. "The humans appear to have concentrated their fire on his neck joint. Where the armor plates meet, they used many small projectiles at the same time." Vexstar had never heard of such a thing. When other species fought Zephrians, they usually tried to use their biggest weapons first. They would fire once with everything they had, fail to penetrate Zephrian armor, and then surrender. These humans had done the opposite. They used many small weapons together to find weak spots. "Sir, we're getting reports from all ground teams." Crix continued. "The humans are not fighting us directly. They shoot a few times and then disappear. Our warriors cannot find them to fight back." "Cowards," Vexstar snarled. "They run because they know they cannot win in a fair fight." But even as he said it, Vexstar knew something was wrong. Cowards ran away from a battle completely. They did not keep coming back to shoot again and again. These humans were doing something different. It's something he had never seen before. Dr. Amy Collins ran through the ruins of what used to be a hospital emergency room. She was 31 years old and had been a trauma surgeon for 8 years. In all that time, she had never treated wounds like the ones she was seeing now. "Bring him over here," she called to 2 soldiers who were carrying their injured teammate. The wounded man had been hit by some kind of energy weapon that had burned through his protective vest and into his chest. The wound was unlike anything in her medical textbooks, but Amy had learned to adapt quickly during her years in emergency medicine. If she did not know how to treat something, she would figure it out. "What's his name?" she asked the soldiers. "Private Danny Brooks," one of them answered. "Okay, Danny, you're going to be fine," Amy told the unconscious man. "I'm going to take good care of you." As she worked to save Danny's life, Amy could hear the battle continuing outside. More wounded soldiers would be coming soon. Heard something else? The sound of human weapons firing, followed by those horrible alien screams, or people were fighting back, and apparently they were winning some of those fights. Doc, one of the soldiers said quietly, is it true that we killed one of those things? That's what I heard, Amy replied as she cleaned Danny's wound. Good. Maybe they're not as tough as they look. Amy did not answer, but she was thinking the same thing. When the aliens first appeared, everyone assumed humanity was doomed. These creatures were obviously more advanced and much stronger than humans, but they were not invincible. They could be hurt and they could be killed. That meant the fight was not over. Lieutenant Crix watched his display screen with growing concern. In the first hour of ground combat, his forces had killed 43 humans. That sounded like a good result, but they had also lost 11 Zephrian warriors. 11. In 3,000 years of conquest. The Empire had never lost that many soldiers in a single battle, let alone a single hour, he said carefully. To Commander Vexstar, perhaps we should reconsider our tactics. Vexstar's acid was dripping faster now, which always meant he was either very angry or very worried. What do you mean? The humans are not fighting like any species we have encountered before. Our standard assault methods assume the enemy will either surrender quickly or engage us in direct combat. These humans are doing neither. On the screen, they could see human soldiers moving through destroyed buildings like ghosts. Appear suddenly, fire their weapons at Zephrian weak points, and then disappear again before the aliens could respond. It was unlike anything either officer had seen. They fight like prey animals, Vexstar said slowly. But prey animals that have learned to hunt. The thought sent a chill through both aliens. In their experience, creatures were either predators or prey. Predators were strong and fought directly. Prey were weak and ran away. But these humans seemed to be something different. They were weak like prey, but they fought like predators. Should we request reinforcements? Crix asked. Vexstar was quiet for a long moment. Requesting help would mean admitting that his initial assessment of the humans had been wrong. It would mean explaining to the High Command why 3,000 Zephrian warriors could not quickly defeat a species with no natural weapons and primitive technology. But as he watched another of his warriors fall to coordinated human gunfire, Vexstar realized he might not have a choice. Send a message to Fleet Command, he finally said. Tell them the situation on Earth is more complex than anticipated. Request additional forces for extended operations. It was the first time in his career that Commander Vexstar had ever asked for help during a conquest. As the message was sent, he stared down at the blue planet and wondered what other surprises these strange humans might have in store for him. Far below, on Earth's surface, Sophie Grant reloaded her weapon and prepared for the next phase of the battle. She had no idea that her actions and those of her fellow humans were rewriting everything the galaxy thought it knew about war. The apex predators were learning that sometimes the hunted can become the hunters. 3 months had passed since the Zephrian invasion began, and Commander Vexstar no longer felt like a conqueror, felt like prey. The feeling was so alien to him that he had trouble even understanding what it meant. For the first time in his life, he was afraid. Sir, we have lost another patrol, Lieutenant Crix reported. His voice had changed over the past weeks. The confidence was gone, replaced by something that sounded almost like fear. Vexstar looked at the tactical display. Red dots showed where his forces had been stationed yesterday. Today, 6 of those dots were gone. 6 full squads of Zephrian warriors had simply vanished during the night. No distress calls, no sounds of battle, just silence where his soldiers used to be. How many is that this week? Vexstar asked, though he already knew the answer. 23 squads, sir. 230 warriors. 230 of the galaxy's most dangerous predators, gone. Vexstar had started this invasion with 3,000 soldiers. Now he had less than 2,000 left, and reinforcements were still weeks away. At this rate, he would have no army left by the time help arrived. What happened to Squad 15? Vexstar asked. Crix pulled up the report on his screen. They were patrolling the ruins of what the humans call Detroit. Last contact was at 0300 hours. When the next patrol found them 6 hours later, They were all dead. Killed in battle? No, sir. That is the strange part. They appear to have been hunted. The bodies were found in different locations, as if they had been picked off one by one. There were signs that they tried to form a defensive position, but the humans somehow got behind them. Vextar closed his eyes and tried to understand how this was possible. Zephrians had natural night vision that was better than any other species. In the galaxy, they could smell enemies from miles away. Their hearing could detect the slightest movement. How could any creature sneak up on them? Show me the security footage from their armor cameras, Vextar ordered. The main screen lit up with images from the dead soldiers' equipment. Vextar watched as Squad 15 moved through the dark ruins of human buildings. Normal at first. Warriors moved in standard formation, checking for threats and communicating with each other. Then the first one died. The footage showed Warrior Grix walking past what looked like a pile of rubble. Suddenly, the rubble moved. A human soldier covered in dirt and debris rose up like a ghost and fired 3 quick shots into Grix's neck joint. Before the other warriors could react, the human had disappeared again. Pause it there, Vextar said. He studied the frozen image carefully. The human looked small and weak compared to the massive Zephrian warriors around him. But there was something in his eyes that made Vextar's skin crawl. It was not fear or desperation. It was the cold, patient look of a predator that had been waiting for the right moment to strike. Continue the footage, Vextar ordered. What happened next was unlike anything he had ever seen. Instead of panicking or running around wildly, the remaining Zephrians tried to form a defensive circle. It was the right tactical decision against any normal enemy. But these humans were not normal. The camera showed brief flashes of movement in the darkness around the aliens. Shots came from multiple directions, always targeting weak points in Zephrian armor. Every few minutes, another warrior would fall. The survivors would move to protect the new gap in their formation, only to discover that more humans had appeared in different locations. They are pack hunting us, Vextar whispered. Sir, Grix asked. Look at how they move. They do not attack. All at once, like warriors. They surround their prey and take turns striking until the target is dead. This is not battle tactics. This is hunting behavior. The realization hit Vextar like a physical blow. He had been thinking of the humans as a weak military force using cowardly tactics. But that was wrong. They were not soldiers at all. They were predators, and they had identified Zephrians as their prey. Sergeant Ben Carter lay perfectly still under a pile of concrete and steel beams, watching the Zephrian patrol walk past his hiding spot. He had been waiting in this position. For 6 hours, ever since his scout team had spotted the aliens heading toward this area, Ben was 34 years old and had spent 12 years in special forces before the invasion. He had been trained to fight human enemies in jungle and desert environments, but over the past 3 months, he had learned to hunt aliens in the ruins of his own cities. The key was patience. Could wait much longer than Zephrians expected. The aliens were used to quick battles where enemies either surrendered immediately or fought back right away. They did not know how to handle an enemy. They could wait motionless for hours or even days. Ben counted 6 Zephrians in the patrol. They were moving in a tight formation that would be perfect for fighting other Zephrians, but made them easy targets for human tactics. Ben clicked his radio twice, sending a silent signal to his team members hidden in other locations around the patrol. The first shot came from Private Lisa Torres, positioned on the 3rd floor of a damaged building 200 yards away. Bullet found the gap between armor plates on the lead Zephrian's shoulder. The massive creature roared in pain and spun around to face the direction the shot had come from. That was exactly what Ben had been waiting for. As the alien turned away from him, Ben rose from his hiding place and put 3 rounds into the back of its neck. The creature dropped like a falling tree. The remaining 5 Zephrians immediately formed a defensive circle. Just as Ben knew what they always did, and it never worked against human tactics. Within seconds, more shots came from different directions as the rest of Ben's team opened fire. The battle lasted only 4 minutes. When it was over, 6 more Zephrian warriors were dead, and Ben's team had vanished back into the ruins without taking a single casualty. Control, this is Hunter 6, Ben whispered into his radio as he moved to a new position. Package delivered. moving to secondary location. Copy, Hunter 6. Good work. RTB when ready. RTB meant return to base, but Ben was not ready to go back yet. His team had been tracking this particular Zephrian unit for 3 days, learning their patrol patterns and habits. Intelligence suggested there might be more aliens in the area. Ben wanted to find them. This was what humans had learned to do better than any other species in the galaxy. They studied their enemies, learned their weaknesses, and then used that knowledge to hunt them with scientific precision. Private. Lisa Torres was captured 2 days later while conducting a reconnaissance mission in what used to be downtown Chicago. When the Zephrians brought her before War Chief Threkmer for questioning, she was not surprised. Getting captured had always been a possibility, and she had prepared for it. Threkmer was even larger than the regular Zephrian warriors. He stood, almost 14 feet tall, and wore armor decorated with the bones of enemies he had personally killed. His claws were longer and sharper than those of his subordinates, and acid constantly dripped from his mouth. "You will tell me where your bases are located," Thrakmar demanded in broken English. Lisa looked up at the massive alien without showing any fear. At 22 years old, she was one of the youngest soldiers in her unit. Fighting impossible odds had taught her something important about herself and her species. Humans were very good at surviving things that should have killed them. "You picked the wrong species to mess with," Lisa said calmly. "We're not prey. We're persistence hunters, and we never stop." Threkmer leaned down until his face was only inches from hers. This close, she could smell his alien scent and feel the heat from his acid breath. Any other species would have been terrified. "You are small and weak," Threkmer growled.
Ow.
"Your weapons are primitive. Your technology is thousands of years behind ours. How do you think you can defeat us?" Lisa smiled. It was not a happy smile, but the cold expression of a predator who knew something her prey did not. "Because we learn fast, we never give up, and there are 8 billion of us. You killed some of us, so now we're going to kill all of you." That's what humans do when someone threatens our pack. That night, Lisa escaped from her cell by picking the lock with a piece of metal she had hidden in her boot. She killed 3 guards with improvised weapons made from materials she found in the Zephrian ship. She sabotaged the vessel's life support system and sent a signal to Earth, forces revealing the ship's location. When human rescue teams arrived 12 hours later, they found the entire crew of 87 Zephrians dead from oxygen deprivation. Lisa was waiting calmly in the hangar bay, having figured out how to operate the alien airlock system. "How did you do it?" the rescue team leader asked her. "I watched them for 3 days, while they held me prisoner. I learned how their technology works. I found their weaknesses, and then I used that information to hunt them." She looked at the dead aliens scattered around the ship, same as always. Back on his flagship, Commander Vexstar read the report about the destroyed ship with growing horror. One human prisoner had killed an entire crew of experienced warriors. Should have been impossible, but the evidence was right there in front of him. Sir Crick said quietly, "The High Command is demanding an explanation for our losses. They want to know when we will complete the conquest." War Chief Khosrakal had conquered 17 worlds for the Zephrian Empire. He had seen species that could breathe fire, aliens that could turn invisible, and creatures that could move faster than sound. But he had never seen anything like what was happening on Earth. "Show me the battle reports again," he ordered his aide as he stood in the command center of the newly arrived Third Fleet. The holographic display showed the current situation on Earth. Red zones marked areas controlled by Zephrian forces. Blue zones showed human territory. But what disturbed Khosrakal most were the green zones. These were areas where neither side had clear control, where the fighting continued day and night without end. "Sir, the humans are not behaving like any conquered species in our records," his aide reported. "When we destroy one of their cities, the survivors do not surrender. Instead, they move to other cities and continue fighting." Khosrakal studied the map more carefully. The humans had lost 3 major cities to orbital bombardment. Millions of their people were dead. Military bases had been destroyed. Their government buildings were in ruins. By every logical measure, they should have given up weeks ago? "What are they fighting for?" Khosrakal asked. "Their leaders are dead. Their armies are scattered. Their civilization is in ruins. Why do they continue? That is the strange part, sir. They do not appear to be fighting for territory or resources, our intelligence suggests. They are fighting for each other. Kazrakal's translators struggled with the concept. Fighting for each other made no sense. Every species fought for something they could possess: land, food, wealth, power. But these humans seem to be fighting for something much more difficult to understand. Explain, Kazrakal demanded. When we capture human prisoners, they refuse to give us information, even when threatened with death. When we kill human soldiers, their comrades become more dangerous, not less. When we destroy human families, the survivors dedicate their entire lives to killing us. It is as if each human death makes the rest of them stronger. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Colonel Ryan Parker coordinated the global resistance from a command center that had been built to survive nuclear war. The facility was now serving a purpose its designers had never imagined. Organizing humanity's fight against alien invaders, Ryan was 45 years old and had spent 23 years in the military. He had served in conflicts on 6 continents and thought he understood warfare. But the past 4 months had taught him that everything he knew about fighting was wrong when applied to this enemy. Sir, we have confirmed contact with resistance cells in 47 countries, reported Major Kate Williams, his communications officer. The networks are holding strong despite continued alien attacks. Ryan looked at the world map displayed on the main screen. Red dots showed active resistance groups. There were thousands of them, from major military units in secure bunkers to small groups of civilians hiding in suburban basements. Each group operated independently, but they all shared the same goal: make the aliens pay for every inch of Earth. What's the latest from the engineering teams? Ryan asked. Dr. Katie Johnson's people have finished reverse engineering the alien energy weapons. Production begins tomorrow at sites in Montana, Texas, and underground facilities in what used to be Germany. Ryan nodded. This was what made humans different from every other species the aliens had conquered. When faced with superior technology, most creatures simply gave up. Humans studied the technology, figured out how it worked, and then built their own version. Sir, Major Williams continued, we're also getting reports that civilian volunteers are requesting combat training, not just military-age people. We have requests from teenagers, elderly citizens, and even some children. Children? Ryan asked, concerned. Yes, sir. A group of 12-year-olds in what used to be Atlanta have been conducting surveillance on alien patrol routes. They're providing intelligence to our forces in that area. Ryan felt a mix of pride and sadness. No adult wanted children involved in a war, but these children had seen their families killed and their homes destroyed. They wanted to fight back, just like every other human on the planet. Make sure they stay in support roles only, Ryan ordered. Intelligence gathering, communications, supply runs. Nothing that puts them in direct danger. Yes, sir. Though I should mention that some of them have been asking for weapons training. Ryan was quiet for a moment. In any normal war, the idea of arming children would be unthinkable. But this was not a normal war. This was a fight for the survival of the human species, and apparently every human understood that, regardless of age. We'll discuss that later, Ryan said finally. What's the status on the hybrid weapons project? Major Williams pulled up a new screen. Dr. Johnson's team has successfully combined human manufacturing techniques with alien energy technology. The new weapons are lighter, more accurate, and more powerful than anything either species has produced individually. This was the key to human survival. Other species might have better natural weapons or more advanced technology, but humans had something no other creature possessed: the ability to take ideas from different sources and combine them into something. Entirely new. Dr. Steve Adams had never expected to become a military researcher. Before the invasion, he'd been a psychology professor at a small college in Ohio. Now, he was one of Earth's leading experts on alien behavior and psychology. The Zephrians have a fundamental misunderstanding of human nature, Steve explained. To a group of military officers in the underground command center, they think we fight like individuals who happen to be in the same army. They don't understand that we fight as a single organism. General Patricia Wells, who had taken command of Earth's combined military forces, leaned forward with interest. "Explain that." Steve activated a holographic display showing footage of recent battles. "Watch how humans move during combat. One soldier is wounded. Others immediately move to help, even at great personal risk. When one unit is under attack, nearby units change their own plans to provide support. When one group discovers an alien weakness, that information spreads to every human fighter on the planet within hours." The footage showed human soldiers in different cities using identical tactics against alien forces. These tactics had been developed by trial and error in one location, then shared instantly with fighters around the world through radio networks, internet connections, and even simple word of mouth. "The Zephrians are fighting 8 billion individual enemies," Steve continued. "But those 8 billion individuals think and act like a single creature with 8 billion eyes, 8 billion hands, and 8 billion brains. From their perspective, they're fighting one opponent that's everywhere at once." General Wells studied the footage more carefully. "Is that why they keep losing patrols?" "Exactly. When a Zephrian patrol encounters human fighters, they think they're facing a small group that they can defeat with superior strength. They don't realize they're actually fighting the advanced scouts of an entire species. Every human they kill has friends, family, and comrades who will spend the rest of their lives hunting down the aliens responsible." Steve switched to a different display, showing psychological profiles of captured Zephrian soldiers. "The aliens are starting to show signs of severe stress. Many of them are having what we would call nervous breakdowns. They're not equipped mentally to handle an enemy that never stops, never gives up, and never forgets." Engineer Katie Johnson wiped the sweat from her forehead as she watched the first hybrid energy rifle roll off the production line in the hidden Montana facility. The weapon looked like a cross between a human assault rifle and an alien energy projector. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "How many can we produce per day?" asked Lieutenant Colonel Jeff Martinez, the military liaison assigned to the engineering project. "Starting tomorrow, we can make about 200 per day at this facility alone," Katie replied. "The Texas plant should be online next week, and the German facility will start production as soon as we can get the components shipped there." Katie was 38 years old and had spent 15 years designing manufacturing equipment for automotive companies. Before the invasion, she had never held a gun in her life. Now she was designing weapons that could kill creatures from another star system. "The aliens probably don't expect us to have energy weapons, Lieutenant Colonel," Martinez observed. "No, they don't. Their tactics are based on the assumption that humans have primitive projectile weapons only. When our people start shooting back with alien-level technology, it's going to be a very unpleasant surprise." Katie looked at the rifle again. It represented something the Zephrians had never encountered before, a species that could learn, adapt, and innovate faster than their enemies could adjust to new threats. "There's something else," Katie said. "My team has been analyzing the alien power systems. We think we can modify their energy sources to power other human equipment. Communication systems, vehicles, maybe even entire cities. What does that mean for the war?" Katie smiled for the first time in months. "But it means we're not just learning to fight like them. We're learning to fight better than them." Back in orbit, War Chief Kazrakal received the report he had been dreading. 1 year after the invasion began, General Patricia Wells stood on the observation deck of Earth's first space battleship and watched the last Zephrian stronghold burn. The alien fortress had taken 3 days to fall, but it was finally over. Earth was free. "Ma'am, we're receiving surrender signals from the remaining alien ships," reported Captain Mike Thompson, her communications officer. Patricia nodded but kept her eyes on the destruction below. The Zephrian base had been built in what used to be the Sahara Desert. For months it had served as the command center for all alien operations on Earth. Now it was nothing but twisted metal and smoking ruins. "Accept their surrender," Patricia ordered, "but keep all weapons trained on them until they're secured." Patricia was 52 years old and had spent her entire career preparing for wars that seemed impossible until they happened. But nothing in her experience had prepared her for what came next. The humans were not content to simply drive the aliens away from Earth. They wanted to make sure this could never happen again. "Ma'am," Captain Thompson said carefully, "the President is asking about the space program timeline." Patricia smiled. The space program. 6 months ago, that would have sounded like science fiction. But humans had a talent for turning impossible dreams into reality when they were motivated enough. "Tell the President that the first fleet will be ready to launch in 3 weeks, Patricia said. "Admiral Carlos Rodriguez has been training the crews nonstop. They're ready for deep space operations." Captain Thompson looked surprised. "Deep space operations, ma'am?" "That's right, Captain. We're not just defending Earth anymore. We're taking the war to them." Admiral Carlos Rodriguez had never expected to command a fleet of starships. Before the invasion, he had been in charge of submarines for the Pacific Fleet. But when humanity captured enough alien technology to build their own spacecraft, someone had to learn how to use them in combat. Carlos stood on the bridge of the U.S. Retribution, humanity's flagship, and watched his fleet prepare for departure. 25 ships hung in Earth's orbit, each one a combination of human engineering and alien technology. They were faster, more maneuverable, and better armed than any ship the Zephrians had ever built. "Sir, all ships report ready for jump," said Commander Lisa Torres. She had been promoted after her escape from the alien prison ship and now served as Carlos's second-in-command. "Thank you, Commander." Carlos looked around at his bridge crew. 6 months ago, none of them had ever been in space. Now they were about to launch humanity's first interstellar military campaign. "All ships, this is Admiral Rodriguez. Today we begin a new chapter in human history. We are no longer just defending our home. We are ensuring that no other species will ever face what we have faced." The fleet jumped to hyperspace, heading toward the Zephrian Empire's border worlds. Behind them, Earth continued building more ships, training more crews, and preparing for a war that would reshape the galaxy. In the Zephrian capital city of Vorthak, High Commander Sektal read the final reports from Earth with growing horror. The Third Fleet was gone. The Home Fleet was gone. In 1 year, humanity had destroyed 2 of the most powerful military forces in galactic history. "How many ships did they lose?" Sektal asked his aide. 17, sir. Out of the 300 we sent to their world. 17 ships. The humans had destroyed 600 Zephrian vessels while losing only 17 of their own. It was not just a defeat. It was a complete disaster that proved everything the Empire believed about warfare was wrong. "Sir," the aide continued nervously, "we are receiving reports that human fleets have been detected in the Kepler and Vega systems. They appear to be attacking our border colonies." Sekto felt his acid glands shut down completely. Something that only happened during extreme stress. Humans were not just defending themselves anymore. They were expanding, conquering, taking territory that had belonged to the Empire for centuries. "What are their demands?" Sektal asked. "Sir, your terms for peace? What do they want from us?" The aide looked confused. "Sir, they have not contacted us about peace terms. They appear to be focused entirely on military operations." That was when Sektal realized the terrible truth. The humans were not trying to negotiate. They were not looking for a way to end the war peacefully. They were hunting Zephrians with the same cold efficiency they had shown on Earth. And they would not stop until every alien was dead or completely defeated. Commander Vextar, the officer, who had started this nightmare by attacking Earth, now found himself in command of the Empire's last major fleet. He was stationed at the fortress world of Krexener, trying to organize a defense against the approaching human forces. "Sir, the humans have jumped into the system," reported his sensor operator. Vextar looked at the tactical display and felt his blood freeze. 25 human ships had appeared at the edge of the system. They moved in perfect formation, like a pack of predators surrounding wounded prey. "Deploy all defensive forces," Vextar ordered. "Prepare for full engagement." Even as he gave the orders, Vextar knew it was hopeless. The humans had learned everything there was to know about Zephrian tactics, technology, and weaknesses. They fought with captured alien weapons that had been improved by human engineering. Worse, they fought with the cold patience of creatures that would never stop hunting until their enemies were extinct. The Battle of Krexenar lasted 6 hours. When it was over, The fortress world's defenses were completely destroyed. And Vexstar found himself broadcasting a surrender message to the human fleet. "This is Commander Vexstar of the Zephrian Empire," he said into his communications system. We surrender unconditionally." The response came quickly, spoken in perfect Zephrian by a human who had learned the alien language during the war. "This is Admiral Rodriguez of the United Earth Space Forces. Your surrender is accepted. Prepare to be boarded." When the human soldiers came aboard Vexstar's ship, he was shocked by what he saw. They moved with the same deadly efficiency as Zephrian warriors, but there was something different about them. They showed no hatred, no anger, no desire for revenge. They treated their prisoners with cold professionalism, like scientists studying interesting specimens. "Commander Vexstar," said the human officer in charge, "I am Colonel Ben Carter. You will be transported to a prisoner facility where you will be questioned about Zephrian military operations." Vexstar recognized the name. Colonel Carter was one of the humans who had hunted his soldiers in the ruins of Earth's cities. Seeing him in person, Vexstar finally understood what his species had awakened. These creatures were not just soldiers, they were evolution's most successful predators, and they had learned to hunt on a galactic scale. The formal surrender of the Zephrian Empire took place 3 months later on the neutral world of Centaurus Prime. Representatives from 847 species gathered to witness the end of 3,000 years of alien domination. High Commander Sectol signed the surrender documents with hands that shook from fear and exhaustion. Across the table sat General Patricia Wells, representing humanity. She had insisted on personally accepting the Empire's surrender. The Zephrian Empire formally surrenders all territory, military assets, and governing authority to the United Earth Federation, Patricia read from the document. All Zephrian military forces will be disbanded. All occupied worlds will be granted immediate independence under Earth protection. Sectal looked up at the human general. "What will happen to my people?" Patricia's expression was calm but firm. "You will be relocated to reservation worlds where you can live peacefully under human supervision. Your children will be educated in human schools where they will learn that strength comes from cooperation, not domination. And if we refuse?" Patricia's eyes grew cold. "Commander, your species made a choice when you decided to hunt humans. Now, you live with the consequences. You are no longer apex predators. You are a conquered species under human protection. Accept it, and your people can have peaceful lives. Resist it, and discover what happens when humans decide a species is too dangerous to exist." The message was clear. Humanity had become the galaxy's new dominant species, but unlike the Zephrians, they ruled through strength, tempered by justice. 6 months later, Admiral Carlos Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the Retribution as it patrolled the border between human space and the unexplored regions beyond. His fleet had grown to over 200 ships, crewed by volunteers from Earth and liberated worlds throughout the galaxy. "Sir," reported Commander Torres, "we're receiving a distress signal from an unknown species. They claim to be under attack by something called the Void Hunters." Carlos smiled. There were always new threats in the galaxy, new predators who thought they were the strongest. They would learn the same lesson the Zephrians had learned. "Set course for the distress signal," Carlos ordered, "and send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we may have found our next hunting expedition." As the human fleet jumped toward the unknown threat, a message was broadcast on all galactic frequencies. It had become humanity's standard warning to any species considering aggressive action. "We came in peace, and we would have preferred to stay that way. But if you come hunting humans, you had better make sure you kill us all."